Hi there, it's me again, Linda from Erica Michaels, and I'm here to do some more show and tell. There are 2 new designs coming your way yet before the end of the year, in time for a little last minute Christmas stitching if you like, or simply maybe something for your Christmas wish list. So without further ado, let me get started. The first of the 2, I'm going to preface a little bit by reminding you about some previous berry designs. You might recall that a few years ago I released 4 different chart packs. Each was a trio of seasonal berries. So there were spring berries, there were summertime berries, autumn berries, and winter berries. And for instance, the autumn, which obviously is appropriate right now, were 3 berries. In this case, it was a scarecrow, a pumpkin, and then just the word autumn. And in fact, each of the seasonal sets, one of the 3 simply says the name of the season. So we had autumn, winter, that's summer, right? This is winter. And then we also had spring. And then the other 2 in each of the trio were just a fun theme of some sort to do with the season. And I got to thinking about this some more, and I thought, well, I need to do trio berries for the holidays. Christmas is coming. So one of the new chart packs is simply Christmas berries. It's a trio. Let me see if I can get them here in one handful to start. Obviously, holding 3 berries is a little bit tricky. So I have a trio of Christmas berries, classic Christmas colors. The thing I like about designing with Christmas colors, I think we all have our favorite Christmas red, our favorite Christmas green. For some of us, that's a very bright green or red that really pops. For some of the rest of us, they might be softer tones. They might be more jewel tones. They might be more subdued or almost primitive kind of tones of the same color. And most Christmas stitching, you can kind of customize and do what you like with that. And that's the case with these. So we'll just start with this one. This is it just says Noel. And these star-like motifs are just arranged in a kind of almost a coverlet kind of pattern. They do come from one of my antique pattern books. Those books often include kind of overall textured patterns. It's an overall pattern that's stitched, and it almost creates a texture rather than a specific illustration. And that's where this little pattern comes from. And it's in the red and the green, and then pops of gold. And then I have a little star charm off the side here. So this is Noel, a simple design, but like I like to tell people, a lot of designs that are simple, when you have them all done and wrapped up, they have just a lot of impact. And it's always nice to be able to kind of put that across. The next one is my Santa Claus berry. And he has a row of his hats. There's the ho, 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 and Santa himself. We come around, there's a Christmas tree, some holly, where it says Santa Claus. Now I will point out, I used for these berries, I use 36 count Tyco linen from Picture This Plus. And it is a very creamy neutral with a little bit of a warmer, almost greenish tone. And that sounds weird, but there's not a huge amount of contrast with the white of the Santa hats. Personally, I'm okay with that because when it's finished and stuffed, I like to stuff my berries nice and firm, you still see all of that. But this is the kind of detail that, depending on your fabric selection, you might decide you want to backstitch that. Perfectly okay. Go ahead and do that if that's what you like. And again, if you pick something besides the Tyco, it might have plenty enough contrast for those white details to show up. So don't get too caught off guard with that, because there are ways of dealing with it. Certainly lots of neutral fabric options are available to you. You might already have something in your stash that you like for Christmas time with the reds and the greens and the pops of gold and some white contrast. So go for that. So that's the Santa berry. The third berry in the trio is Yuletide. And this one has more of a Christmas tree and greenery feel to it. Little bands, different types of Christmas trees, some holly. Just again, your reds and greens. There's 2 shades of green in these berries to kind of give a little bit of interest and contrast. Now, one thing that I like to do oftentimes, especially with holly berries, is these single little stitches for these berries. I will often do them in a Smyrna cross. That gives them a little bit more dimension, a little bit more weight. And for a single little holly berry, I like how that pops. If you don't want to do a Smyrna cross, you might decide to do, say, 2-ply when you make that stitch. I always use 1 ply of floss when I'm stitching on 36 count, but for something like the holly berries, you might try 2-ply instead of a Smyrna cross. But it's one of those things, you know, the devil's in the details, right? So sometimes giving those little berries, those little individual stitches, that little extra bit of emphasis can make all the difference. Now I want to talk about the top treatments. If you look here, you'll see I'm using my, I guess what my standard scallop shape of a base cap is, but you'll see that I have doubled them up. Okay, so for these 2 berries, there's 2 shades of green, and the top base cap is just a little bit smaller than the one underneath, so that you can see that difference in color and that contrast. And it just adds a nice little, again, a detail that's almost a textural thing to add interest to the top treatment. So there's the 2 shades of green. And then in each of these berries, I have done a leaf shape. You see, it's basically kind of a pointy oval, sort of. It's not really much more than that. And then I've taken my scissors and just snipped in that felted wool, and it gives it, again, the texture, the little detail that adds interest, but it also, to me, is a little bit reminiscent of the evergreens and the needles on those evergreen trees. And so that's how I have done the leaves on these berries. And in the case of the Santa berry, there's the leaf. And because it's Santa and we're all about the red suit, the second base cap is the red color. The other thing that I did here, in addition to the leaf, is I took some white, or it's snow, chenille from Lady Dot Creates, and I just kind of spiraled it into a little circle and tacked it down to the cap. Remember, I always put everything on the cap before I attach the cap to the berry. So when you're assembling the cap, you can stack the two layers of the base together, secure the end of the leaf in place, and then you can just do a little spiral circle of the chenille. I mean, we are talking about Santa and the fur trim on his hat, right? So that's why the little bit of chenille. I added one of my jelly roll pins, and also a pearlized heart pin. These are made by Dritz. So that's the top treatment for the Santa berry. The Noel berry, because I had kind of a star pattern type of motif, I did attach a star charm to a little gourd pin and just dangle that off the side. The top treatment is pretty simple. There's the leaf, there's the jelly roll pin. That's a pretty vintage button. And then those holly berries are straight pins. Red straight pins make great holly berries. Lastly, the top treatment for the Yuletide berry, again, it's the tonal cap and the leaf I showed you. And this one I simply topped with a length of green ribbon and a gold straight pin in the middle. So when I teach my berry finishing classes, I like to remind everybody that I think some people are intimidated by the top treatments, and you really don't need to be. When you break down what they're all about, they're basically layers, right? You can see the layers of wool, and it can be as simple as just a pretty bow, pretty ribbon, and a few straight pins. It can be simple, or it can be over the top elaborate, whatever you like, right? So the Christmas berries, a new trio for the seasons. And yes, I will be doing more trios for at least a few other holidays. We'll kind of wait and see how that all develops over the course of the next year or so. But I definitely have a couple of the holidays in mind. So watch for those. Now the other new pattern is also part of a series. You might remember just this past August when I released Fall Designs, I had a little set of little smalls that I called Autumn Cartouches. You might be familiar with the term cartouche from samplers. It's basically a little stitched border pattern that often includes the sampler stitcher's name or the verse that they've chosen, perhaps an important date, whatever it might be. But it's a little decorative border around those words or word. And so this series are seasonal, and I'm ready to release my winter cartouches. And so, again, these are just they're great little bits that you can stitch from stash. And again, I'll do them separately. But there are 3 on linen, and I've done a 4th one on perforated paper. So we'll start with that one. Very simple, burr, right? I'm one of those people, I like looking at the snow. I don't even mind being out in the snow too much, but I don't like being cold. So this is simply burr with a little border going all around, kind of on point, done on a perforated paper, a quick finish with sticky felt on the back side, a little hole punched in the top. And this is just a piece of twill tape. Nice little ornament size. You could easily stitch this on a piece of fabric. There's nothing that says that you have to stitch this on perforated paper. But again, sweet little small, quick stitch for you. The next one I have is Icy. Now this, two of these are stitched on a 38 count linen, legacy linen that's called Vermeer. And it's a very soft gray blue color. And obviously this is all stitched monochromatically in white, your choice of white. I used Snowflake from Weeks Dye Works because I like the subtle play of color in that one, but that's perfectly up to you. And even the fabric is, you know, there are some really pretty shades of soft gray blue colors for wintertime stitching like this. Again, you want to pick something that has enough contrast, that the fabric is dark enough that you're going to get that nice contrast with your stitching. And in this case, I finished it as kind of a traditional flat ornament with little mini palms around the sides and just a bow at the top. So that's Icy. All right, we have Burr and we have Icy, probably my two least favorite things about winter, right? The other thing about the winter season, especially when I'm designing, I live in Tennessee, so it doesn't snow every year. But for those of you who live where you get a lot more snow, the thing that I have always found that I like so much about it is that it's so quiet, right? The snow kind of insulates everything, and there's just this very peaceful quiet about a snowfall in the winter. Obviously, there's some other things going on that aren't so peaceful and quiet in the winter time, but just that snowfall, that's what always strikes me. And so this is one of the little pieces I did with another little border around, just peace. And this one has snowflakes, little bits of green reminiscent of the pine trees. A simple little finish, a little small cushion, a bow and a pin. And these are little straight pins just inserted at various points for that little bit of detail. And the fourth one, there are always 4 in these series. The fourth one, also in the series, says simply winter. Just as in the fall cartouches, there was one that simply said fall. Again, these pretty blues and greens. This one is also done on a legacy linen, but it's called Cloudburst. So it is a very pale gray. It's not white. It's a very pale gray. And so the snowflake motifs, everything's done in kind of a two-tone blue color. This is some more of the snow chenille from Lady Dot. Pretty snowflake pins. Just Another Button Company has several pin sets that include a snowflake. They're really pretty. I really like their snowflakes. So winter. So we have 4 pieces, winter and peace. Icy and Burr. Now both of these new patterns, the Christmas berries and the winter cartouches, will be shipping to your shops the third week of November. So that week of November 17th. So they should easily be in your automatic shops inventory before Thanksgiving. So even if you don't get all your Christmas stitching done by Christmas, that's okay. A lot of us stitch Christmas all year round anyway, and these pretty little winter cartouches might be something that you would enjoy stitching when you're perhaps snowed in, or you're just spending maybe some quiet time over the holidays, whatever it might be. And speaking of the holidays, I hope you all have a lovely Thanksgiving, and certainly on into everything that goes along with Christmas and New Year's and all the busyness. And I hope you can find some quiet moments to not only stitch, but to remember what we have to be thankful for. And hopefully you can spend quality time with loved ones. Thank you again, and I'll see you next year. Bye now.